Choosing what monitor to buy these days can get pretty difficult because there are so many different models to choose from, and we can't always rely on the ratings because, let's face it, us human beings are easily satisfied. As long as the power's on, we're happy with that. So it's my job to give it to you guys straight. So I went on Amazon and I picked 8 of the highest rated monitors that cost $110 or less, and I'm gonna review them in this video for you. That way you can spend your parents' money wisely. By the way, you guys aren't gonna see any 144Hz monitors on this list. You're gonna have to spend at least $140 to get into that tier. And I actually made a video on the best 144Hz gaming monitors under $200. So if you guys have a higher budget, make sure to check that video. I'll leave a link down below. At the end of this video, I'll be ranking all the monitors from the best to the worst, and I'll give you my personal recommendations as well. So with that said, let's begin. Stop paying full price for Windows 10 CD keys, you guys. You can pick one up for only $13 on yourcdkey.com. Just make sure to use my code to get that extra 20% off. Links in the description. Starting with the cheapest monitor on the list, we have the Acer K202. This is actually the only monitor on here that isn't 1080p. Instead, you get a 1366 by 768 resolution with a TN panel, 60Hz refresh rate, and a 5 millisecond response time. Definitely not the best specs for a gaming monitor. Aesthetically, it's not a great looking monitor either, with thick bezels around and a very flimsy stand. It doesn't require any hardware to install, however the stand will only give you tilt adjustment, but I would much rather mount it on an arm since it's VESA compatible. Acer is also using very cheap material for the frame. It's so cheap that it can easily get scratched up just by wiping it with a microfiber cloth. The monitor comes with a VGA cable, which I haven't seen since the Stone Ages, but you can hook it up via HDMI if you want, since it does come with an HDMI port in the back. The monitor also has pretty slow response time at 5 milliseconds, with lots of ghosting, which is noticeable during gaming. The picture quality on this monitor is terrible, to say the least. Not only do you get inaccurate color reproduction, but the whites are oversaturated and overall just lacks vibrancy. Surprisingly, on their product page, they are claiming exceptional image quality, which is a load of garbage. The viewing angles are also pretty bad. Lots of color shifting vertically and horizontally. Needless to say, I wouldn't use this monitor for any color sensitive work. I wouldn't even watch porn on this, to be honest. Backlight bleed is very difficult to capture accurately on camera, so you're just gonna have to take my word for it, but I didn't experience any on this monitor, so I'm giving it a perfect score of 5. The total rating on this monitor is a solid 2 out of 5. You are definitely getting what you pay for here, but I would rather pay a little more and get something better. No one should be buying this monitor unless it's for their grandmother or for someone that needs a spare or second display for basic tasks. Next up on the list is the Asus VP228. This is a 22-inch 1080p monitor with a 60Hz refresh rate and a 1 millisecond response time on a TN panel. Aesthetically, it's not bad looking. It has thick boy bezels with a matte coating to help prevent fingerprints, and it's built pretty well. The stand does wobble a bit, but it does have a much better build quality over the last monitor and offers a good amount of tilt adjustment. However, it doesn't have a VESA mount. The monitor comes with an HDMI and a 3.5mm cable, however you can connect it via VGA as well since it comes with a VGA port in the back. The monitor also comes with built-in speakers, however they are crappy and I would avoid using them for anything. Very little ghosting present on this monitor thanks to the super fast 1 millisecond response time, however you are capped at 60Hz, which is unfortunate. Color accuracy isn't the best on here either. Surprisingly, the cheaper monitor had more accurate color reproduction than this monitor, so I would avoid any color sensitive work on this as well. One thing to note is that this monitor comes out of the box with the standard picture quality, which is very flat. It's lacking saturation and contrast, so I would recommend switching it to theater mode to add a bit of life to your content. Having a TN panel also means that you don't get the best viewing angles, however the Asus monitor does have noticeably less color shifting than the previous display. I am happy to report that the monitor doesn't have any backlight bleed, and with that my final rating is 3.3 out of 5. It's a decent monitor that checks a lot of the boxes. Having a 1 millisecond response time is great for gaming, however it shoots itself in the foot by capping at only 60Hz refresh rate. And number 3 is the Sceptre 24-inch curved monitor with over 1,000 positive reviews. Now this one is going for $110, but with that extra moolah, you are getting a curved VA panel with a higher refresh rate. As you guys know, the higher the refresh rate, the smoother the game looks and feels, which enhances your gaming experience and makes you a better gamer. The Sceptre comes with a 75Hz refresh rate, but with a slightly slower response time at 5 milliseconds. The stand takes quite a bit of assembly as it requires you to install the neck and the base separately using a few screws, but they did include a tiny screwdriver to help with the process, as well as a few cable clips to help with cable management. The stand is built very well. It's nice and sturdy, however it doesn't have as much tilt, which is disappointing. However, you do have the option of mounting it since it's VESA compatible. Aesthetically, it's a good looking monitor with the 3-sided thin bezels. I also like how they move the menu button in the back, just like all their other models. However, this is quite annoying as it might take some time getting used to since you can't see what you're pressing. The monitor comes with an HDMI cable only, however you do have the option of plugging a VGA cable as well as headphones via audio jack in the back. I did notice some ghosting and corona artifacts while gaming, however it didn't really affect my performance in game. In fact, I did much better at gaming on this monitor than the Asus monitor, which had a faster response time. Personally, if I had to choose, I would rather have a higher refresh rate than a faster response time. Color accuracy isn't the best on the Sceptre, covering only 96% of the sRGB color space. However, the picture quality is a lot better on VA panels compared to TN. You get crisp and vibrant colors with much better viewing angles, very little to no color shifting present with peak brightness of 261 nits. Although the monitor comes with built-in speakers, they are far from great. They don't get loud at all, so if you have a loud PC next to you, it's going to drown out the sound from the speakers. The biggest gripe I found with this monitor is the backlight bleed. There are so many hotspots visible, especially towards the corners, which can get annoying if you're watching movies or playing games with a lot of dark scenes. The Sceptre would have been the easiest recommendation for any budget gamer if it just had less backlight bleed and a better stand. Next up on the list is another Acer monitor. This is a thin and light 21.5-inch display with a 75Hz refresh rate on an IPS panel. The stand is broken up into two pieces, the neck and base, which don't require any tools to install. The neck piece snaps in place while the bottom part of the base screws on. And I gotta say, I'm happy with the overall quality, however I would have liked to see a VESA mount option in the back. It's a great looking monitor with thin bezels all around with decent tilt adjustment. Unfortunately, the monitor only comes with a VGA cable, so you would need to buy a separate HDMI cable if you want to use that instead, which can add to the overall cost. The response time on this monitor is slightly faster at 4 milliseconds, but you still get ghosting and corona artifacts while gaming. It's just not as prominent with the other displays. What I found surprising is that even though this has an IPS display, the color accuracy is lacking with only 96% of sRGB coverage. Picture quality, however, is great. As expected with IPS panels, you do get great color and contrast with wider viewing angles. Now there are some slight backlight bleeding near the bottom, but it's not as noticeable and it shouldn't really bother you playing or watching videos. Overall, I'm very impressed with this monitor. It definitely checks a lot of boxes, and for that reason, it deserves a solid 4 out of 5. Up next, we have the Viotek NB24CW. It's a 24-inch curved monitor using a Samsung VA panel with FREESYNC support. You do get a 75Hz refresh rate, however it has a really slow response time at 8 milliseconds. The stand is very similar to their other models. It's made out of all aluminum and built very well with great tilt support. The monitor does come with an HDMI cable and a VESA adapter, so if you want to ditch the stand, you can mount this on your desk or wall. Okay, so the response time is on the slower side compared to the rest of the monitors on this list. As you guys know, the higher the response time, the longer it takes for a pixel to change from either black to white or from one shade of gray to another. And since this monitor has an 8 millisecond response time, you're gonna see a lot of ghosting. It's definitely more noticeable on this monitor compared to the others. Color accuracy seems to be on par with the other monitors, and you do get better color reproduction overall with wider viewing angles thanks to the VA panel. However, the black levels are disappointing. Squares 1 through 7 are not distinguishable at all, which will affect your viewing experience. This means that in darker scenes, all the detail in the blacks will not be visible in your game or videos. The monitor does come with built-in speakers, and they don't sound as terrible as the other monitors on the list, but they do lack clarity and don't get that loud. As far as backlight bleed, I didn't notice any, but I did find a dead pixel near the top right corner, which is worth mentioning. Luckily, I bought this from Amazon, so I can replace it without a problem. If you can look past the slow response time and the horrible black levels, this monitor can be a great addition to anyone's desk, especially for those going with a multi-monitor setup. This Philips monitor caught my attention the most. It's a 24-inch frameless IPS monitor with a 75Hz refresh rate with FREESYNC support. The stand is made out of plastic, but the construction is very solid. In fact, it's the best stand in this list of monitors and arguably the best looking monitor as well, with those really thin bezels. It does offer wide tilt angles, however I wish the stand was black instead of silver, but at least it comes with a VESA mount if you want to ditch the stand altogether. This is also the only monitor in this video that comes with both an HDMI and VGA cable with lots of connectivity. You get HDMI, VGA, DVI, and even an audio jack back here. Despite it being an IPS monitor with a 5 millisecond response time, I'm surprised to see very little ghosting and corona artifacts while gaming. Now what this monitor excels in is color reproduction, covering 100% of the sRGB spectrum, making this the most color accurate monitor from this list. However, with that said, it falls short when it comes to black levels. It's very difficult seeing the difference between all the shades of gray, just like the Viotek monitor. All the dark scenes will appear darker than they normally are, and you won't be able to see any detail because of it. One thing I like about the monitor is the OSD button. You get a single joystick located near the back, and this allows for easier navigation instead of having to deal with multiple buttons. Where the monitor doesn't do so great on is the backlight bleed test. Lots of bleeding is present all around the monitor, with some parts bleeding a lot more than others. If it wasn't for the backlight bleed and the black levels, this monitor would have gone pretty close to a perfect score. This next monitor from Acer looks amazing on paper with a 75Hz refresh rate, 1 millisecond response time with FreeSync support. It also managed to get over 1,000 positive reviews, but after assembling the monitor, I was already questioning the legitimacy of the reviews. To start off, the stand quality is horrible. I've never seen a more flimsy stand in my life, and the overall quality construction of the monitor is terrible. It looks like Acer used really cheap plastic, and it definitely shows. You do get decent tilt angles, but I would much rather mount this on an arm since it is VESA compatible. Sadly, it doesn't come with an HDMI cable. Instead, you get VGA and an audio cable. However, it does support HDMI, and you also get a microphone and headphone jack in the back. Even with a 1 millisecond response time as advertised, I still experienced some ghosting. This is actually the only monitor on this list that has both a 75Hz refresh rate and a 1 millisecond response time. Color accuracy on this monitor is the worst, barely covering 94% of the sRGB color space, and out of the box, the colors looked washed out. For some reason, it comes already set to 100% brightness, so I do recommend bringing this down to 50%, but even with that, the colors don't look that great. It's a bit more on the flat side. The viewing angles are decent. Color shifting is not as noticeable horizontally as it is vertically, so the more you tilt the monitor, the worse it gets. And finally, on the backlight bleed test, I did see very slight bleeding in the corners, but nothing serious to complain about. I'm surprised this monitor has a lot of positive reviews, when in reality it's not that great, especially for the price that it's going for. Last but not least, we have the Acer R240HY, another 24-inch frameless monitor, however this one is capped at 60 Hz. It has a sleek design with a circular base that's built very well, and it offers a good amount of tilt. However, it's not VESA compatible. The monitor only comes with a VGA cable, however it does support HDMI and DVI as well. I wouldn't call this a gaming monitor per se, since it's only capped at a 60 Hz refresh rate with a 4 millisecond response time, but it is playable and will do just fine for casual games. The picture quality, on the other hand, is great. Colors are nice and crisp with great viewing angles. However, it lacks in color accuracy with only 95% of sRGB coverage. And finally, no backlight bleed was spotted anywhere on the screen. It might not have the best specs for gaming, but overall it's a solid, good-looking monitor for casual gaming or non-color sensitive work. Here's a quick graph showing the rank of all the monitors from the best to worst. And also, here's a full summary of their pros and cons. From this list, the best all-around monitor for gaming and productivity is hands down from Philips. It may not have the fastest response time, but it definitely knocks out everything else in the checklist compared to the rest. With a gorgeous frameless design that's built very well, a 75Hz refresh rate with FreeSync support, and the best color reproduction hands down. The best value monitor goes to the Acer SB220Q. For $90 you get a lot. A good looking, well built frameless monitor with a 75Hz refresh rate and great color reproduction. The worst monitor on the list is the Acer K202. You are definitely getting what you pay for here. A cheaply made, low resolution display with horrible color reproduction that should only be bought to be used as a secondary display for basic tasks. If you guys want my honest opinion, I wouldn't buy any of these monitors. I would personally save up a little more and buy a 144Hz monitor instead, because the difference between 60 or even 75Hz and 144Hz is night and day. I would gladly spend a little more just to get that 144Hz experience because it's a huge difference. Not only will you have more fun playing the game, but it will make you a better gamer and give you an advantage over people playing on lower refresh rates. You can buy a 144Hz monitor right now as low as $140, probably even cheaper during sales. But if you guys want a more detailed video on some of the best ones you can buy under $200, check out my video, which I'll link below. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, or at the very least found it helpful on deciding what monitor to buy. It took me a very long time to make this, so leaving your feedback in the comment section or a simple like would be greatly appreciated. As always, I'll drop a link to all the monitors talked about down below. I love your beautiful faces, and I will see you in the next video.